All right, so in this video, I want to go over, do a little walkthrough of packet tracer 1561. That is in the Switching, Routing, Wireless Essentials course. And this packet tracer, you're supposed to configure IPv4 and IPv6 static routing and default routing. And they even get into floating static routes. And with the instructions over here, I'm going to leave them off the screen because I find it's easier to work to show you what's going on without these, but it does come with the instructions with the address table and all that. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to go down this step by step. So the very first thing it tells you to do is to configure an IPv4 static default route. Specifically, we're setting a default route to go to a ISP1 router. This is on the edge router. And it says directly connected, which means it's out the exit interface. So serial 000. Let's go into our configuration. So default route is 0.0.0.0, mask of 0.0.0.0, and we're going out serial 000. Okay. Next, it wants us to do a default static route. Let's see, configure a directly connected IPv4 floating static default route. And this will go to ISP2, which is here. Once again, it's directly connected, so it's out the exit interface. I'm going to assume, actually I don't have to assume because it's on the addressing table, that is serial 001. And does it tell us an administrative distance? It does. It says to use an administrative distance of 5. You have to have that for a default, for a floating point static route. You have to define an administrative distance. Once again, this is a default route, but this is the secondary default route, a floating route. This will be going out 0.0.0.1, and this will become active if serial 0.0.0 is, is down, or if this router is down, then this floating point route would become active. This is the administrative distance of 5. Okay. All right, part 1 is done. Now let's go to part 2. Configure IPv6 static and floating static default routes. So on the edge router, still on the edge router, we're going to do a static default route for IPv6. And the primary default route should go through ISP1, just like for IPv4 route. And we need to specify the next hop. Serial 000 on ISP1. I have that IP address here. That's how you do defaults in IPv6. And the IP address on that interface on ISP1 is 2001 DB8 A1:1. Double check it. Okay. And configure the floating point, the floating static route to ISP2. The serial interface on ISP2 is serial 001. That, so I can just use the up arrow because it's going to change the IPv6 address. It's A:2:1. And specify an administrative distance of 5. All right. So that is part 2 is complete. So part 3 is configure IPv4 static and floating static routes on the internal to the internal LANs. So we have to go to ISP1 on this now. Okay, the internal LANs. Start with LAN 1 because you can see it right there. /28, that is 240. And it's specifying a next hop IPv4 static route. So the interface, what you're looking for is the interface on the edge router. Serial 000, IP address is 10.10.10.2. This is in the addressing table in the project, it's part of the instructions. Okay, we have to do LAN 2 as well. It's 192.168.11.32/27. It's 11.32. Yep. /27, that's 224. And that is to the same interface. So 10.10.10.2. Valid next hop if it's, oh, because I hit 1. Okay, it's yelling at me because I'm pointing it to itself. Okay, so that should be fine. Now, step 2 in part 3, configure IPv4 floating static routes to the internal LANs. So this is the same ones, only this is, we're going to specify an administrative distance, and it says directly connected, so we're actually going to just send it out the exit interface. Hold on. Now, what's the backup link here? So it would be going out the gigabit, because this is the primary, this would be the secondary. This would be where your floating route would be. ISP1, that's gigabit 00. So this network out gigabit 00, administrative distance 5. And what we've done here is we've created floating point routes for our LANs. If this interface were to go down, At least this, it would be able to route to this router and then go through. All right, that concludes part 3 of this packet tracer assignment. Part 4, configure IPv6 static and floating static routes to the internal LANs. And this again is on ISP1. Got our IPv6 address for the LAN right there, and the network. So configure a next hop IPv6 static route to LAN 1. The primary one's going to be through the edge router. Okay, we need the IPv6 address for the edge router serial 000 interface, which is in the addressing table as 2001 GB8 A1 ::2. And configure for LAN 2 as well. LAN 2's address is .1.11. Okay, and that's step 1 is done. Step 2 is to configure the IPv6 floating static routes to the internal LANs. Let's see. Configure next hop IPv6 floating static route to LAN 1 through the ISP2 router, administrative distance of 5. Let's look that up. Let's take a look at this network. Let's see. We're talking about, this is the backup. So this interface here, the gigabit 00 interface on the ISP2 router is what we're looking at for next hop. And that is 2001 DB8 FF ::2. And administrative distance of 5. And the other network. All right, and that completes part 4 of this packet tracer challenge. The last part is configure host routes. A host route is a route that goes to a specific host. Typically, it's done to like servers and things like that. And we have a server right over here. So let's see. Edge router configure IPv4 directly connected host route to customer service. It's just right there. Well, it's on the edge router. Just go back to edge router. Into a host, you just have to put in the host IP address 198.0.0.10. When you go into a host route, the subnet mask is just all ones for 255, 255, 255, 255. It's basically saying it has to be an exact match for it to route to it. And let me just make sure that it asks for directly connected. So it's going out the interface. That's serial 000 would be the primary one. That one's going to ISP1. And now we'll do let's see, configure IPv4 directly connected floating host route to customer service using an administrative distance of 5. So the secondary interface is 001, administrative distance of 5. And now I assume we got to do the same for IPv6. Yep. Configure an IPv6 next hop host route to customer service through ISP1 router. So it's IPv6 route. Okay, 2001 DB8 FF:10. On a host route on IPv6, I do believe it just specifies /128. We'll find out. And this is going to ISP1's IPv6 address, which is 2001 DB8A1::1. ::1. Let me double check and make sure I'm getting the right IP address there. Yeah. Okay. And the secondary to go through ISP2. ISP2's is FF::2. Administrative distance of 5. And let's see, I believe that is the last step. Yep. So that is how you complete 15.6.1. Should be all set. Do I dare check my work? Oh, what did we miss? Let's take a look. Probably mistyped an IPv6 address. Yeah, looks like it looks a lot of green checks, but one little one right there. So the third route on the edge router IPv6. So let's take a look at that. Okay, let me bring up the addressing table here. Since okay, ISP2. Oh, yeah, I think I screwed up this route right here. So this is what makes IPv6 a pain, because if you make a mistake or something, you gotta retype all of this, and it's a much more complicated numbering system to look at and translate in mind to typing. A lot of things about IPv6 are actually easier. But this is one time where you're it's definitely not. Okay, so it should be IPv6. It should go to ISP2. So let's ISP2 serial port. I actually did the IPv6 address for the gigabit port, and that is why it did not work. So the serial port is 2001 DB8. Now I'm double checking everything as I'm typing it now, so I don't want to do this again. And administrative distance is 5. Okay, now let's check our results. Look at that, 100%. That is how you do 15.6.1 in switching, routing, and wireless essentials. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment or contact me directly. You have a good day.